Welcome back to the Cal 40 Restoration Project. We've had 2 days of rain, steady rain here in Berkeley, California, and it's kind of slowed our process. But today we're going to be rolling because the sun's starting to shine. We're going to start by doing some work on selecting our prop for this boat. We're being joined by Ian Smith from PYI, which is a company that sells a number of innovative products, one of which is MaxProp, and that's a feathering prop. And we've asked Ian here today to explain the background on props and how it's all going to fit on our boat. So Ian, thank you for coming down and helping us with this project. We have a new engine, new transmission, and everything's new to the prop. And what we had in the boat, it showed up in one of our first episodes, was an old Martech prop, fully encrusted 2 inches of life on it. Obviously, I don't feel comfortable with that old prop that's been in the water that long. What do we need to do to pick the right size and all that for this boat?
Yeah, so first off, with the repower, you're probably not going to have the right pitch in the first place for this, so that's something to consider.
It might even be going the wrong way, correct?
Yeah, it could be, starting with the new make and model of the engine, the reduction ratio of the transmission, and obviously the diameter of the shaft, that'll give us everything we'll need to kind of get an idea of what the ideal prop is as far as the pitch and diameter.
All right, I have that information.
Okay, so we can get that. Once we've got the ideal prop that we'd like to have under the boat, we have to make sure that it's going to fit under the boat.
Okay.
So in this case, it looks like you have plenty of room here, but typically some boats will have apertures or just really tight. The shafts will be really tight up to the hull.
Okay.
In cases like that, we want to make sure that you have ideally about 15% of the diameter of the propeller as a clearance between the tip and the hull. So in this case, you've got plenty of room.
Yeah. What's our dimension here? How it's back here to here?
Yeah. So you'll want to essentially check from the hull to the center of the shaft.
It's about 12 and a half inches.
In this case, we're just about 12 and a quarter. We want to make sure that you've got that 10 at the very minimum, but 15% of that diameter as a clearance there.
Okay, so in this case, just doing the rough math, and I think we had about 12 inches. If we had a 10-inch swing on here, which would make a 20-inch prop, that'd be the maximum we'd ever want to put in there. And it probably might be too big for the engine and the application.
Exactly, yeah. That's why we'll start with the engine's horsepower, max rated RPM, and the reduction ratio, so we can make sure that we've got an ideal pitch and diameter. Okay.
I don't have the reduction gear ratio in my head, but it is a ZF V drive off the engine, and it is a Beta Marine 50.
Okay.
And then the boat is obviously a Cal 40, and it weighs about 16,000 pounds. So those are some of the bases. And then I assume you need the shaft diameter too. Which this is going to be an 1.25 inches, which will affect it. Okay. Well, I know you brought some samples with you of different things. I'd love to see it. So I think we'll get out of the breeze here and you can go upstairs and you can give us a little history on props and look at the technical information we need and some technical details of the MaxProp. I'd love to see more detail. So we're inside now and warming up. It's pretty cold and rainy outside, and nice to be in here. Ian's brought a number of samples with him of different technologies in props. This one I think we're all familiar with, which is a 2-blade fixed prop. It's sort of the standard of the industry. It's what most boats come with when you get a new sailboat. But it has the disadvantage of having a bunch of cross-sectional area that you have to drag through the water. And over the years, there's been a constant progression on creating products that could eliminate that drag. And you have a number of those examples here, which go through kind of what the history has been of creating a better low drag prop.
Sure. So there's 2 trains of thought here. There's the folding propeller and a feathering propeller. When you got your hands on the boat, it had this prop on it here. This is a Martech folding propeller. The idea behind that is that under sail, these clamshell closed, and you end up with a lot less drag than you do with the fixed propeller, as you can see here. So racers went crazy over this because it added about 15% more boat speed under sail, which is something that obviously any racer is going to want to take advantage of. So yeah, with all of its benefits, it did have a few issues. One being that the blades are independent of each other, which means in lighter air or in certain situations, you could have one blade that opens up while one's still going over. There's a few solutions to that, is whether you index the shaft so you can kind of bring it to this so where they can't open up.
I actually used to volunteer to go down and put rubber bands around them.
Okay.
So that shows how eager we were to go sailing.
So that was a disadvantage to this, and backing in reverse was another pretty big disadvantage.
I see, because when it opened up, it used centrifugal force, but it had
Exactly.
force of the blade against it. There was no lock.
So in reverse, you're doing whatever you can do to make sure these blades engage, and the best way to do that is to rev high, which you don't want to do in a fairway or when you're backing into a slip or something.
Right.
So along with that, the blade profile that you're using in reverse is not going to be very efficient.
I see, it's a different blade
With,
profile, front to back. Okay. From
exactly.
top and,
So
top and bottom.
with the high RPM and the inefficient blade profile, you get a lot of that prop walk. There was a bit of an advancement on this, introduced in '75, I believe, by Gorey. This is not a Gorey prop. This is a Volvo, but it still gives you kind of the same idea of what's happened here.
But Gorey was the first one that
Correct.
had a geared.
Yeah. So
Geared blade.
The advancement from the Martec was the geared folding blade, so that they're now dependent on each other. So nothing falls over, unless they're both falling over.
Probably the disadvantages in the reverse problem, I've heard that's the biggest complaint with them. And then
Correct, yeah, and that's where the feathering prop comes in, with all the advantages of a feathering prop over a folding propeller.
because if you put it into reverse, obviously you're trying to thrust against the backside of the blade, and so this thing starts to pitch like
Yeah,
this.
you have to make sure you've got enough RPM to engage the
Get
prop.
Yeah.
And with the pitch the way it is, you're actually fighting that. So it takes a lot of centrifugal force to open up those blades in reverse.
Okay.
The feathering propeller, such as the Max prop.
And where did this come from? Or what's the history of this?
These are made in Milan. The feathering propeller uses torque to engage as opposed to centrifugal force.
Right.
So it's going to react to the shaft's torque when you when you're engaged in forward under power. You've got this, so it's engaged in forward. This being your leading edge, this being your trailing edge. This is the most efficient shape that you're going to get.
Right.
Within 3/4 of a shaft turn, you have that exact same blade shape that you had in forward, now in reverse. So now you've got the leading edge here and the trailing edge, which makes it very, very efficient in reverse.
Right.
Much more efficient than a folding prop and
Yeah,
more
because you had a
efficient
full
than-
blade and it's at the right pitch.
Correct. Yeah. So underway, when you cut your engine power off and you're sailing, the flow of the water is going to push this into a feathered position like so, which means very, very little drag in comparison to your fixed blade propeller, as you can see. So in order to make a specific recommendation on a propeller, we did need the information that I asked you down at the boat.
I have the engine information here, which is it's a Beta 50 with a 50 horsepower at 2,800 RPM. And it's on a ZFV drive,
Okay.
which we debated on. And then the forward gear is a 2.13 to 1 gear reduction, a 2.22 reduction aft.
Okay,
on reverse.
so we care about forward because that's where it's going to
Okay.
be most of the time
Right.
here. So, being that it's going to be a race boat, we're going to opt for the 2-blade,
Okay.
and we'll use 18 inches of diameter with 22 degrees of blade angle.
Okay.
Had you decided that you wanted to fit it for cruising, we might consider something like the 3 or 4-blade propeller.
Right.
In that case, the pitch would change slightly, but you've got more blade area, so you don't need as much pitch.
Right.
And in the case with the race boat, though, an 18-inch diameter, 22 degrees of blade angle, and we're all set.
Should do it. Okay. Well, great. So Tell me about the maintenance on these things. I know that you know, the standard two-blade prop would just have a collar zinc on it. What else is required? This obviously is more complicated.
There's really just one more thing that you want to add to your maintenance list with the Max Prop as opposed to a fixed blade, and that is greasing it. You can see there's 2 grease ports right here. We want to make sure that you're using a calcium-based grease that we can provide for you.
Okay.
You'll get one with your propeller, a tube. And we want to make sure that at least every other season you're pumping new grease into there.
All right.
It's not a sealed system, so you will see, you don't have to worry about cleaning out what's in there. You just pump new grease in there, kind of pump it, feather it until you start to see grease coming out of the seams and right out of here.
And just to reinforce the issue of maintenance, you brought a great example of what we got off the lock job for here.
Yeah, so the zinc anode is going to prevent this from happening. This is a severely corroded, galvanic corrosion got to this pretty bad here. And the zinc anode's going to stop something like this from happening.
It's amazing because the shaft's completely gone forward of the cutlass bearing, and then it's almost gone beyond it. And then that's pretty telling, and that's a good example of why you need to have your prop serviced on a regular basis. So that sounds great, and we'll get that on order and get it down here. We'll get it on the boat, and I really appreciate all your help in coming down and explaining this.
No problem at all.
So
anytime.
Appreciate it. Okay. So yesterday our new Max Prop arrived, and today we put it on. We had a chance to review all the videos that PYI has put together to give you a lot of helpful hints on installing it. And it is an absolutely beautiful piece of machinery. Really excited to get the boat back in the water and see how it performs. And right now, it's just one more major item off our list, and now I can move on to the next thing.